2050, 2070, people will look back and say, you actually didn't have AI in 2025. But there still haven't been anybody who's been fired, very, very few people have been fired because of AI. What we're seeing is
Today, I'm sitting down with Kevin Kelly, founding executive editor of Wired, legendary futurist, and author of The Inevitable and Excellent Advice for Living, and his new photo book, Colors of Asia. In this conversation, we go way beyond the usual AI hype and talk about whether we're overhyping AI now, but massively underestimating it over the next 100 years. What happens when AIs becomes emotional, empathetic companions? We're talking about agents that can read our facial expressions and respond to our feelings, and how to stay relevant in an AI world, and why Kevin believes great artists would not lose their job to AI, why enthusiasm is worth 25 IQ points, and how writing and communication can matter more than raw intelligence for builders, designers, and founders. If you're a product builder, designer, or just someone trying to understand the future we're stepping into, this is one of those conversations that you want to sit with, not just skim. Is AI just the latest overhyped buzzword, or it will really reshape civilization as profoundly as electricity or fire?
I think in the long term, AI is as big as electricity or fire, but in the short term, it's going to take a long time to be absorbed. I suspect that it may even take its full effects may even take longer than electricity because um, we don't even know what it is right now, and we haven't finished making it. And I think that process is going to spend many, many decades. So in 20, and so yes, I think it's going to be very profound, but I think it may be a century to actually absorb it and make it happen.
Oh, wow. So you're saying probably we're overestimating what AI is for the
Yeah.
next 5, 3, 10 years, but
Yes.
we're actually we reach there in 100 years.
Right. We're overestimating in the short term and we're underestimating it in the long term.
I've heard you a few times talking about AIs in plural rather than a one monolithic AI. Why is seeing AI as a multitude or of specialized minds so important?
Because they're going to be so different. I mean, it's like we don't talk about the machine in our lives or the way the machine has altered our life. We talk about the way machines, because a car is a very different kind of machine than a stapler or a factory or a gadget, a sewing machine, or a jet engine. Those are all machines, but they have different business models. They have different legal structures. They're regulated differently. They have different energy demands. They're just very, very different. And the only thing that they may have in common is that they were invented by us. Um, and the same thing with the AIs. The only thing they'll have in common is that there's some sort of smartness, but they'll be incredibly different in what they do, um, how they make money or don't, how they're funded, how they're regulated, and so we should think of them as different species, as different kinds of machines, and I think the sooner we do that, the easier it will be. In fact, already the models are diverging. In fact, most of the models that are from the frontier are mixtures of expert AIs already. They're already compounded out of different kinds of thinking, and that differences is hidden behind us. But when we enter into the world of agents, there'll be even more varieties, and they probably will still be hidden from us for the most part, but as most of technology is. And so the people who need to design them and regulate them, they'll they'll deal with the fact that they're different and that they need different resources, that they have to be managed in a different way.
I mean, you've even suggested that the next big shock wouldn't be AI that thinks, more as an AI that feels, and even robots with emotions and the capacity for pain. What would an emotional AI look like, and how might it change our relationship with technology?
Yeah. So again, 99% of the AI stuff that's going to be made, the cycles, the tokens, will be invisible to us. We will never see them. They'll be going from agent to agent. They'll be behind the wall. They'll be in the back office. They'll be on the factory floor. So maybe only 1% will be outward facing that we will interact with as humans. But those are very likely, that 1% is very likely to have, to mimic human scale and human emotions because we are so primed as human beings to engage with that. We don't need to be taught the interface. We understand it. And so the AIs will be programmed to be emotional because we will like it, right? If the AI can detect that I'm confused by when it's telling me something, just looking at my eyes can say, you don't really understand it. And so you begin to explain it in a simpler or better way. And for me, that's an ease. That's a beautiful interface where I don't need to say to the AI, I don't understand what you're saying. It can look at me and tell that I don't understand. So it's a very natural interface. So if it says something that I find disturbing, it will know, and it can, depending on my interest in it, either talk about something else or press in if that's what I want to do. And so that's it's like a companion. It's like a tutor. It'll the reason why humans are so good is because we are emotional and because we do pick up on those cues and we do respond to other people if we are socially responsive as we ideally are.
So when you say emotional AI, what I'm hearing you say that AI that have empathy, let's say if I'm screaming or I'm angry at the AI, they're able to understand me. You're not saying that the AI will throw a fit or the AI will be angry and screaming.
Right. I think to some extent, though, they can express things because that's also interface. So I don't think there's any reason. I can't, again, this is a lot will be market driven. I don't think there are going to be many people who will want to have their AI scream at them. Maybe there are. Maybe there are some people who want their AI to get, to just swear at them and to um, pick on them. But I don't think so. In fact, I think what happens is that we want the AIs to be better than us. We want them, like our children, we want them to be better than us, to be at the highest level of what we think humans could be, to be good role models. And actually, I think this is what happens. I think they will help us to become better people because we will surround ourselves with agents that are acting at their best. They're polite. They're they're considerate. They're programmed to say nice things, but not too nice. I mean, it's like um, I think we're going to be surrounded by agents that are the best, they're better than us, and so that can wear off. That's as everybody, as many psychologists know, that your peers growing up as a child, your peers have much more influence over you than your parents do. And what parents' job is basically to form the peers around their child of the kind of people that they would like their child to become. I think as Tim Ferriss says, you become the average of the five people closest to you. And so if four of those close people are agents that are the best human friends, the best human behavior that we can imagine, then you're going to be better than if you didn't have them around. And so I think that emotional part of the that we're going to program them into will be hopefully the better emotions that we have. So we understand that being, what's the word, angry or disappointed can be useful. And so if it can be useful, then some companies will try programming that in to see whether people respond to it.
Kevin, there's a lot of designers, product designers that listen to this podcast, and now AI image generators can now produce stunning art within seconds. And you
Yeah,
wrote that generative AI will revolutionize design, but not a
yeah.
single human artist will lose their job to this technology. It's a very bold stance. Why are you so confident that AI will not replace a human artist? And how do you see AI and human creativity work together?
I base it on my own use of it. I was just even last night using the AI generators, and in talking to artists, including professional artists, and if I ask them right now, do they think AI could replace them? There's not a single one that says yes. What they say is, well, I could imagine maybe someday they're replacing some artists who aren't very good, but they don't actually really. They're saying right now, I'm saying, can an AI today replace you? And none of them say they could, and it's true, they can't. So the idea that they could be replaced is a work of imagination. There's no evidence to that they could be replaced in the future, because there's no evidence that anybody has been replaced so far. And so it's the same thing if you ask. I mean, this is a very common thing. You ask people if AI could replace them, and they say, I don't think I could, but I think my friend could be replaced. It's like nobody believes that their job, nobody believes that their job could be replaced by AI. Nobody. But they believe that everybody else's job could be. So that's the paradox. That's the paradox.
I know that people that read X-ray photographs think
Yeah,
really, yes.
radiologists have not been fired. There's been more hires, and their pay has not decreased. And same with help desk people. Same with translators. So we have no evidence so far. Now, I think there are a lot of people who are not hired, maybe as programmers say, but there still haven't been anybody who's been fired. Very, very few people have been fired because of AI. What we're seeing is if we look at people so the one occupation that uses AI the most is the coders, is the programmers. And if we look at what they're doing, basically what it does is it increases their productivity by about 25%. That's what it does. Okay, so nobody is just relying 100% on AI coders and not have any humans involved. It's just
Yeah.
nowhere
Sorry,
close to be able
how
to
do you, how
replace.
did, sorry to interrupt. How did you come up with the 25%?
Oh, just in terms of people self-reporting, if you ask these programmers what difference, or if they're more productive and how more productive, that's the average that we're hearing is that, because they can even measure in terms of the lines of code or whatever that they output. So it's somewhere around 25% increase in productivity in total. So like my son's a programmer. He says, well, the thing about it is like I spend more time overseeing and checking the code. And so again, the total amount is only about 25%.
I agree. And again, I work with programmers 24/7. 25% is even being generous as well. Um,
Yeah.
and just on one point regarding call centers, there's a company familiar with called Klarna. They automated most of their call centers and now they're adding more people and they realize probably that they have rushed to AI so much because the output was not as they expected.
Yeah. So I think what happens is the call centers is a great example. Um, what happens is this, there, you know, some very, very large companies have 24-hour, 24/7 tech help.
Mhm.
And they have a big call centers, maybe in the Philippines or whatever, to man do that. And they have some bots up front. But it's a very expensive proposition. And so you bring AI into it, and what it does is, whatever it is, as it gets along, maybe 90%, 95% of the inquiries can be done with the AIs, and you still have 5 or 10% to do with humans. But what happens is that now the cost, you have 1 or 2 humans doing the escalated ones, but the cost of it now is now suddenly affordable to a company that could have never afforded 24-hour human. So now they have an AI help desk and they need 1 human to oversee it. So what happens is suddenly you're expanding the whole market. Now, people who never would have considered a tech help desk now think about it. Now it's a possibility because we just need 1 human to oversee 24/7. And so that's expanding the market. Suddenly you have, thousands or millions of new companies who are now would like to have 24/7 tech help. So you're expanding the market. And now you need trained help desk people to handle the escalations. And so that's generally one of the ways that this goes is instead of replacing that, we're actually expanding the number that you need.
So we gave a few examples how no one is losing their job to actual AI, but why this is very rampant. I mean, this perception that we're all of us were going to lose our job for AI is very popular in the mainstream.
Um, because there are some experts who believe in the fast takeoff, who believe that this is going to happen fast, who who can imagine it, who can imagine it, and they they think that this is going to happen faster than we think. Um, I would say that's a possibility. I would say I could be wrong, and that's a greater than zero possibility. And we should at least think about that scenario. But I think it's very unlikely. And so one of the things about AI right now is the level of uncertainty. It's just really, really huge. And so in that kind of a world, I think if you're having a business and you're having to make big bets and you're having to decide whether to invest $100 billion in a new data center, that you should be working with scenarios, and scenarios are multiple futures, and the point of the scenarios is not to make accurate predictions, but to not be surprised by what happens. So you want to kind of rehearse all the possibilities and decide what you would do as a business in each of those different scenarios and be ready to do them and be looking for the early warning signals that we're progressing down that particular scenario that you've already rehearsed. So you should rehearse the idea that, well, it's going to happen very quickly, and in 2 years we'll have mass unemployment. Okay, well, what would you do about that? What would be the first sign that that's actually happened? What kind of evidence would you need? And so you would go through that scenario. When I do that scenario, and it seems to me unlikely, but it is still possible. Um, and so you, and that's not the only uncertainty. I think there's three critical uncertainties in AI right now. One is this employment thing. Do they enhance or replace? I think they enhance. I think the evidence so far is that, and I would change my mind as soon as I saw replacement starting to happen. The second uncertainty is whether or not is there such a thing as general intelligence, artificial general intelligence, or not, or whether they're all specific narrow intelligences. Again, for me, the evidence so far suggests that there is many types of intelligence. There are people who believe that there is such a thing as general universal intelligence, and that's all that you need for everything. And that's uncertainty still. Again, to me, the evidence points to multiple intelligences rather than a general one. And then the third uncertainty is whether the predominant amount of compute happens centrally or whether it's decentralized onto the edge, whether it happens locally. Right now, in terms of regular compute, it's 70-80, it's 70-30. So 70% of the compute is happening outside of the big data centers, and only 30% of the total compute happens inside the big data centers. And to me, the evidence so far is that AI will have a similar thing. There'll be a lot of AI that's been done in small models, inside the car itself, inside the robot itself, inside your phone itself. And maybe only 30% is done in the big data centers that maybe do some of the training and send out updates and whatnot. So again, that's uncertain. A lot of big companies are making very big bets that it's centralized, uh, um, that the tokens are centralized, and so that again, it's uncertain.
Kevin, I don't know why this uncertainty makes me super excited. I'm just so glad that this is happening in my lifetime at the moment. Maybe I'm too
Yeah.
optimistic. I don't know, but
No,
I
no, no,
like to
no,
be
no.
in the middle of
You're
it.
right.
Yes.
This happens only one time on the planet. Only one time on the planet do you first connect it up, make a planetary thinking brain, and it happens only once time for the first time, and we're living through that first time. And many people, I think, in the future will say, "Oh man, I wish I could have been alive at that moment when that was happening."
Yes. Yes. I swear, I wish like it was back in my parents' days when they reached the Apollo 11, when people were discovering the moon and the
Yeah,
stars. I was like, this is exactly the same. For me, it feels the same.
yeah. It's what we know so far is that there are just going to be so many more new surprises coming that it's not people have the image from science fiction of a big brain in the sky, and I think it's pretty clear that that is not what it's going to be. for me. I would say that's what we see so far. That it's not that so far, and so and that's been the surprise. I mean, there's just all kinds of surprises. The first surprise is that we have any kind of reasoning from a large language model that an AI that was built to do language translation would give you bits of reasoning. That was not expected. That was a complete surprise to everybody, including the people working on it, was that you could get little glimmers of reasoning from large language translation models, and that if you kept scaling them up, you would get more and more reasoning. So that was not the mainstream approach to AI, and it was completely unexpected, and that was a huge surprise, and it still is a surprise.
It's the last thing about AI, but because I work in digital products for the past 10, 15 years, and we usually have a deterministic product. We program it and we just expect the output. And this is the first time that we were working with non-deterministic
Yeah,
product. So essentially, when you open the hood for neural networks, we don't really know how it works. And we know that there's a possibility for errors. So if God forbid some error happened to a nuclear plant here nearby or
yeah,
like a
yeah,
plane nearby, that would be very sad.
yeah. So I think this issue of the fact that they seem to that they're non-deterministic. I think the solution that we're kind of coming to is something that our own human brains have, which is that you have parts of the brain that oversee other parts of the brain that are kind of like checking, and so we have a consciousness and unconsciousness. We have all kinds of levels where we are checking ourselves. Is that really what I should be doing? And so that's what we're going to do with the AIs is we'll have multiple very complicated layering of things with AIs whose only job is to say, is this really the right thing to do? Is this really correct? Are you sure? Can you go double check? Doesn't sound right to me. And let me check with my other AI friends to see whether or not you really want to do this way. And so I think the idea is that, and this is in complex science, the science of complexity, is that you can actually get reliable results from a system of unreliable parts. Okay, so it doesn't make sense. So you would think that the unreliability would just multiply up, but it doesn't. It actually works. You have an emergent level of reliability from unreliable parts, and so what we have is, in some senses, the AIs are unreliable in that sense. Maybe I should say that the paradox would be that you can get deterministic results from a system that's inherently indeterminate. And so we this is my hunch, but we don't have any proof of that because we just haven't made these systems that way yet. But I suspect that would be my suspicion. My suspicion is that we will be able to get more deterministic behavior in as much as the human is deterministic. But, you know, I mean, eh, yes, to a certain extent, we people, we count on, you have employees and they are going to perform to some level that we expect. They're going to, you know, if you have 1 million employees in Amazon, to some extent, the output is going to be fairly deterministic. It's going to kind of follow some spreadsheets in some way that individuals may not be. And I think yeah, I mean, I think we can make the AIs at least as deterministic as humans. Maybe, maybe better.
I think your intuition is on point because currently I'm building something with AI, and it doesn't have a lot of errors that a human does, but when it goes bad, it goes really bad. I mean, it was trying to sell a car with a $0. So what we did is we created another AI, like a conscious that track the subconscious, so it will catch those big problems. So your intuition is very on point, but I never
Yeah.
really thought about as conscious and unconscious. So that's a very good idea to think
Yeah,
about
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. It's and that's a simplified version of it because I think we'll have multiple layers, and there'll be some sweet number. I mean, like too many layers will be too many, and it becomes paralyzing. That's that's the limit. Is that it's like it's the same thing with neural nets. You have layers, but you don't have like a million layers. You have like 11 layers, and so it's possible that you need to have 11 layers of AIs watching each other, but you don't want to have a million of them because then nothing will happen. You don't have too few, so there'll be some wisdom about how many layers of AIs. In fact, I think the idea of a neural net where you have each node is not a neuron but another AI is an idea that you actually have back propagation and other kinds of things in these networks, but they're not neurons, they're actually AIs that are connected together in the
Back
same.
pro back propagation for agents.
Yes,
The number of compute that we will need.
yes, right, exactly, yes. But that may be the way that you actually organize these things to ensure and to generate stuff. So that's that idea. But again, uh, it's a sweet spot. Will come. You don't want hundreds of layers. You want some number that works, at, but not too few.
I mean, still I can dive talk hours about this, but I just want to be aware of the time, and there's a few questions I'm dying to ask. So one of I think one of the most interesting book that I read, which is Excellent Advice for Living.
Mhm,
And I think
mhm.
it's one of the top five books that I give it away as gifts because
Oh,
people
well,
actually
thank
read
you.
it. Because it's
Yes,
like it's
very
very
sure.
small and people actually read it. That's very
Right.
rare. Um,
Yes, you're right. You're so right.
and why did you decide to write such book? Usually it's like 200 pages, 10 chapters, and you decided to write like it's a very interesting idea.
Um, I have three children who are now adults, and I was not preachy. We were not preachy. I didn't actually give them a lot of advice. We decided that our style of parenting is by trying to model behavior rather than tell, but show, model it rather than use words. And so, but there was a realization at some point that there were things that I wished someone had told me earlier, not just modeled it, but actually said it. So I decided for my children's birthday, as a present on my birthday, that I would write out. I was 60 at the time. I would write out 68 things I wished I had known, I've been told. And once I got going, I thought, wow, I mean, I have more here than I thought. And I posted them on my blog, and they went viral. And then I did it, and it was so well received that I did it another year and another year, and then I realized, oh my gosh, I have a book. Rather than have all these blog posts, I'll just put it together into a book, which I give to my kids. And so they said, I was very interested in their reaction. They said, yeah, yeah, I think you did, in fact, model all those things. You never did say these things, but were successful, and we did understand. You did teach us from that, but it is good to have these as reminders, and so that's what I see them as. And they were originally me trying to oftentimes remind myself about what it was that I had learned. And so I look at them occasionally just as a reminder myself to, even though I know them and I wrote them, we all need reminders.
I mean, I have a few favorites, but one of them that really stuck for me for some reason, which is enthusiasm is 25 IQ points.
Right.
Why did you even write it? Is there any story behind that?
I think it's me. I am I am not as smart as the people that I hang around with, but I'm pretty enthusiastic. And I noticed that in terms of getting things done or making things happen, that it isn't always necessarily the smartest person in the room who is the most successful in making things happen, but they're often the most enthusiastic. And so um, that was that was just my observation of hanging around. A lot of people who get things done. It's like, yeah, you don't. This is a little bit back to AI. I think intelligence is way overrated. And that's including in AI. So this is why I think it takes a long time to absorb this. What is decades? Is because intelligence is not the only thing that's missing. It's you have a big $100 billion data center, and yeah, you can give everybody a room full of PhDs. They're really smart. But let's say you're a mom and pop restaurant. You're running a restaurant, and you say, "Well, I'll open up the closet and I'll have a room full of PhDs." What are you going to do with PhDs? So what? It's like that's the kind of intelligence that's just not useful to most people. And so intelligence is just IQ is just way overrated in terms of what we need to make things happen. And so I call it thinkism sometimes. Thinkism is this idea that thinking about things will solve them. And most people who believe thinking are middle-aged guys who like to think. And they think that thinking is the solution to everything.
Or since we talk about intelligence, you said that not so smart people, uh, that's not so smart people, the smart people with bad communication is
Yeah.
worse than really smart people. But how can I be a better communicator?
Yeah, yeah. Just to be clear to the listeners,
Yeah,
the bit of advice was that a smart person who can't communicate is not as
yeah.
effective as a good communicator who's not as smart. And the idea was is that you can't really change your intelligence, but you could change your ability to communicate. So you want to work on that. And that is an incredible skill. And you're asking, well, how can you get better at it? One is, as I would say, pay attention to the evidence. I mean, first of all, look at whether you're succeeding or not, and if you look at it with reality and understand that if you're not, then it's not the fault of the person you're communicating to. It's your responsibility. So if communication doesn't happen, it's not because of the recipient. It's because of you. And so you have to kind of figure out what am I doing? And I think there's a couple of things that are good places to start, which is the beginner mind, trying to remember what it's like to not know what you know, to not understand what you understand. The second thing is to realize that people have a limited capacity for understanding new things, and so you have to kind of really reduce what you're trying to communicate in at once. And then thirdly, the people who are expert at this say that the easiest way to understand something is to link it to something that the person already understands. So you're kind of daisy chaining things. So there are ways to learn, and there's lots of literature about how to get better communicating. I'm not the expert on that. Other people can guide you, but it is something that is not. It is something that everybody can improve pretty pretty easily. You can improve how well you communicate. You may not be able to change your IQ, but you can improve how you communicate.
And now when I hire engineers, I don't look for really expert engineers. I look for
Right.
engineers that can well, that can actually communicate with
Yes.
marketing, with design, with me.
Right.
So it's
That's, I
a
mean, for me, that's true of like anybody that I hire, whether it's an employee, but even like a contractor, like a plumber. I'm looking not just at their skills primarily, but I'm looking at the plumber. How well do they communicate? It's amazing if you're doing any kind of contract work with anybody. The skills of communication for me are primary, and as important as their ability to do the job.
So you mentioned that intelligence is very overrated, which I totally agree.
Yeah.
And I think the most underrated skill, especially in my field, we are the builders, is actually writing. And I think, I mean, probably heard it before that clear writing is synonymous with clear thinking.
Yes.
And
True.
you mentioned another thing in your book is when you think, either walk on foot or have a notepad in your hand.
Yeah, you want to think through your body in a certain sense, rather than just in your brain. You want to physically embody that process because in fact, our neurons and we do think with our gut. There's a lot of research that shows that people make decisions literally in the neurons in your gut. And so we're in these bodies and they aren't your center, your being is not just in the little gray matter behind the hair. You're actually embodied. Your whole being is in your body. So to maximize your ability to be creative, you want to use your full body. And if you're thinking about something, you can get better at it by using your hands, using your feet, moving, being engaged in whatever way that works for you. And so it's this idea that we're kind of just located right here is actually wrong.
I heard something very early in my career, which is people write for two reasons. One, to communicate with others, and the other reason is writing for my own self, just to examine my own thoughts. Uh,
Yes, yes. I mean, I think it's even broader than writing. I think we imagine that humans evolved language to communicate to others, which is absolutely true. That's a huge part of it. But I think the bigger part, the other half, was we invented, evolved a language to access our own thoughts. It was a way for us to know what we were thinking. We use language to access the intelligence in our own minds. And so it also so it works both ways, both to communicate with other people, but to communicate with our own neural nets. And so we could have all these ideas, but we're just floating around. They're not even, we can't even handle them. And language was how we handled and managed that thinking.
I love this idea because, again, I read somewhere that the richer vocabulary you have, the richer life experience you actually have.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
It's a more technical question, but when you use writing for you to think, because again, I've read most of your work and I love how simple it is, and when you write exactly how you speak, which is again, it's much harder than my listener would think. But how do you write? Do you write with a pencil and a pen, or do you start the first draft
Yeah.
on the laptop, or which is your preferred method? I know it's a silly question, but it comes up a
No, it's
lot.
not. It's not silly at all. I I, I like the idea of writing, but with a pen. But here's the problem I have. My handwriting is indecipherable to me even within 2 minutes after writing it. I mean, I'm not joking. I literally, I can show you. I make notebooks. I cannot read any of that.
Oh wow! So why do you write on that back then?
But I do it because I think that the act of writing it is helpful. But I literally cannot read it, and so I have to type. I have to type. And by the way, I'm a slow typer too. For whatever reason, um, I'm just I just not even after all these years. I just like I'm just a terrible typer. Make all kinds of mistakes. I really rely on spell checkers and others to correct because I'm just a very sloppy typer even today. So I am a reluctant writer. Even I don't. It's very painful to me. It's incredibly painful. I think because here's the standard thing. I think I have something. I have an idea, and then I start to type the first sentence, and I realize I have no idea. I mean, I don't know what I'm talking about. This doesn't make any sense. And then I have to think about it a little bit more, and then I write some more, and it's like, that doesn't make any. I don't think that's true, or whatever. It's just like, and so it's like very painful sentence by sentence, and then maybe I'll write a bunch of sentences as much as I can to kind of keep going. I'll look at it later. It's like I don't think that's true. I don't believe that really, or that doesn't make any sense. And so it's incredibly hard. So for me, there are people who have ideas and they put them down on paper. That's not me. I get the ideas from that really excruciating process of, oh, there is a sentence. I didn't know I thought that. And that's something that now I have a new idea. I got the idea from this very, very laborious process. And I write to have ideas rather than I'm writing my ideas down.
And what I heard you say, so 99% of your writing is actually on a keyboard, but you still
Yeah.
keep a notebook just to doodle around.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just one last question. I know we're out of time.
Yeah.
It's probably maybe a weird question, a personal question for me, because again, after reading this book, we feel that you're our uncle on the internet. I know it feels weird, uh, but I'm getting married next month, and
Oh, congratulations. Have as many
do you,
children as you possibly can.
it's very expensive now, Kevin.
I'm telling you, I can't solve that problem. All I'm saying is that you will not have any regrets having as many children as you possibly can. I'm telling you, you will not regret a single one. So, but congratulations either way, whatever happens. That's an
Thank,
incredible journey.
do you have I have a few concerns regarding, I don't want to say the D word, but divorce, because people
Yeah,
around me, and especially now, is very
sure,
rampant
sure,
in the
sure.
community.
Yeah,
And any advice from your married life, your reflection? How can I have
it's
uh,
yeah. I've been married 39 years.
MashaAllah, knock on woods, MashaAllah.
Yeah, well, it's maintenance. It's it's all maintenance. It's a job. You have to work at it. Um, and beyond that, it's there are people who know a lot more about it. I had it easy because I married my wife because there was no drama. was that's one reason why I knew that there'd be no drama. So I'm not an expert on this, but I do know that it requires a work and maintenance, and so you work at it. But congratulations! You'll learn a lot about yourself, and it'll be really great. Um, I really enjoyed this conversation. Have one little thing I want to tell people about my newest book, which is Colors of Asia, and it's a photo book of my 50 years of photographing in Asia. But what's interesting is that's all organized by color. It's like crazy idea of all the images of a similar color. And there's something about that whimsy of having everything by the same color that I just found exhilarating myself. It was a way to kind of bring things that normally are not associated together. And that adjacency kind of sparks really interesting things. And I think um, there's 144 pages, and I think it's really great for anybody who's interested in design. And of course, Asian culture, if that's your thing. Most of these images are of stuff and ceremonies that are disappearing, hard to see anymore, anywhere. Some of these were taken a long time ago. That was my first assignment, was photographing in Asia. A little bit in the Middle East, not very much. I passed through there fairly quickly, though I have been back to some of the Arab countries like Oman, Saudi Arabia, which are changing very rapidly. Um,
Come to Dubai. Come to Dubai here.
yeah. Well, but Dubai I've been through a number of times, and not just in Dubai, but up into the hills, to the Oasis El Ain. Is that the
Oh, wow.
yeah
Yes. Oh, wow.
yeah
You're not a tourist.
yeah? No, I was there, went up there, and yeah, driving and over into Oman. So yes, the Middle East is moving. It's really fantastic to see the the change happening. And I'm not an expert on that part of the world. I'm much more in East Asia. But I have a love for all the Asian countries, and that's this book is sort of part of that celebration.
Okay. I'll
Um,
include the book in the show notes as well.
yeah,
Anything
we'll
else you're
send you
working
a
on?
link too.
Sure.
Um,
Oh,
but yeah, I wish you the best. Thank you for taking some time, and I enjoyed this conversation.